About 1965 or 6, I was going to school in Chicago Heights, Illinois, which was near where I was growing up. It was decided that I would do better going to a small military academy in the middle of Onarga, Illinois, which is in between Kankakee and Rantoul. So we go down there, we get our head shaves, we get our uniforms, and I had a roommate, and he brings in a big old reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he had a reel-to-reel of Harry Jazz, Shel's first album, which we played through a couple times, and then that night he ran away and I never saw him again. After I'd gotten out of there and gone to art school and wound up back in Champaign-Urbana because there's a good music scene there, I was sitting on the steps of a frat house on Green Street, and I'd known Shel's work from that literary magazine that he appeared in with all the good articles. And I was just kind of sitting in front of this psychedelically painted house playing a guitar, and he just walked up and kind of stared like, "What's that thing?" And I says, "I know who you are." And a few years later, I'm here in Nashville, and Bobby Bear had sold his publishing company to ATV Music, who had signed me as a writer with no history. I just said, if I can get $25 a week, I'll be happy. I just want to write songs. And the people there were great mentors, and the staff writers for myself and Billy Joe Shaver. And I got to spend a lot of time watching Shel come and go. And one day he needed a ride out to Bradley's barn to hang out with Ernest Tubb. And Shel loved Ernest Tubb and was so proud that Ernest had done his song. So we went out there, and my girlfriend at the time was driving. And on the way there, we wrote Jennifer Johnson and Me, a song of mine that Robert Earl Keen and a slew of other people have done. And in fact, that song mentions my hometown of Homewood in the last verse. And he said, "Yeah, you should come out to Sausalito. I got a houseboat there, and we'll try to write some things." And I said, "Great." So as soon as the opportunity presented itself, I drove to Northern California and got to Sausalito. He was living in Gate 5, which is where Stuart Brand and all that whole Earth catalog kind of crowd was there in this fabulous old houseboat that you can see on YouTube. There's like a Dr. Hook interview where they're all on the boat consuming substances and falling over a lot. But I get there and he goes, "Fred, it's so great to see you. You can stay downstairs and all this sort of stuff. You just missed him." I go, "Who did I miss? You're the only person I really know." And he goes, "Well, Mary Martin just brought Bob Dylan here, and he played me all these songs off a new record he's making about blood on the tracks 2 hours ago." And I'm going, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, they're going to go up to Peter Rowan's house in Marin and play them for him and stuff like that." So that's the closest I came to meeting Bob Dylan. But Shel and I were both from Chicago. We had the kind of sense of humor, and he was a man who was fascinated with making people smile, making people take a different look at where they were coming from, and just a real Renaissance kind of guy who, the Playboy thing overshadowed some stuff, but then when you look at his catalog of songs, things like Hills of Shiloh and the Unicorn Song and all those kind of things, and even the Dr. Hook stuff, which, he knew that those were novelty things, Boy Named Sue. I mean, it's funny because coming out of Chicago, there were people like Stevie Goodman, Brian, Shel, Michael Smith, and every last one of them had really well-crafted, almost you'd call them novelty songs. But we just thought of them as, oh, that's The Three-Legged Man, or that's My Whole World's Waiting Behind Door Number 3, or Michael Smith had Dead Egyptian Blues. And it didn't seem to take anything away from their careers. Shel was loved by Chet Atkins. Shel, came down here with Miss May and a few other people from his job in Chicago, which eased your access to the executives on Music Row. And he never really changed his wardrobe. He'd have a chambray shirt, some can't bust 'em jeans. He could go from sitting with Chet to having a fine dinner somewhere to just hanging out trying to pick up women at wherever. He was a ladies' man and loved women, loved just meeting people. And
just to make sure I understand you correctly, when he came to town, he came with a Playboy playmate, Miss May?
More than once, yes. That time I met him in Champaign, they were making a coffee table out of a plastic. Frank Gallo, the artist, had a studio in Champaign, was making a coffee table out of Barbie Benton's body, basically. And they flew down. It was one of the first flights the Big Bunny ever took. And that's what brought him to Champaign. But, he and I think wrote, he talks about it on one of his records, 15 songs in about 3 days or something. We just went on this rampage of all these different sort of songs, many of which I still perform today and go back to all the time. And I wonder, why did I even stop doing this stuff? But back then I wanted to be a songwriter and learn more about country music. And Shel was still kind of, he was getting an Ernest Tubb cut here, and then you'd get a pop thing there, and then you'd get, a movie Grammy, or just all over the map. And wandered around Music Row. He had an old mailman's bag full of legal pads, and if he didn't have a legal pad, he'd say, "Give me a pen," and he would write on his shirt if he ran out of arm. I mean, he was not going to let songs slip away, and he taught me a lot about how to get over being stuck with a song, because so many times when you're first starting out, I realized that you start to repeat yourself. You've already told me that your father was an older man, but Shel would go, okay, well, we're starting this song in the past. Say, Jennifer Johnson, Deep in the Pocket. Then we go to the present, and then we go to the future, which will give you 3 verses. So if you got a good chorus and a storyline, it really creates for hopefully a more universal situation than just finding 15 ways to say, I got drunk in my pickup truck and my neck is red. He wrote everywhere. If you went to dinner, you're going to write a song before the first course showed up. I mean, no matter what you said, it seemed it would turn into some kind of song, and he didn't give up on him if he liked the idea. And the last time I spoke to him, I'd been to Martha's Vineyard, where he'd had a place, and he was playing me all these new songs, and the same old Shel as I'd always seen. Just, I got a song about a cuttlefish. I wish I could hear that again. And we stayed up half the night just swapping songs back and forth, wrote a new song that night, and he called me from Key West, and he goes, I'm down here, and I've realized that we're all sidemen. But yeah, in Nashville at the time, he was not the craziest guy on the street, or the oddest one. There were all these West Coast writers who'd kind of come up through the rockabilly scene and all this, or they used to write for Elvis and things like that. And
when Shel Silverstein would make demos, did he get someone else to sing it, or?
Yes, he did, but Shel Silverstein would get Dennis Lockyer from the Dr. Hook, who could sing exactly like Shel could, So he got these demos, and it was always really like, Shel, what are you doing? Get somebody else. But he also worked with like Deborah Allen and various people here and there. And Bear was such a great combination because Bear could take songs that if I sang them or Shel did, people would just go, that's just a novelty. Why is this guy screaming? And whereas all of a sudden the storyline came through, it's like hearing a song in a whole new light. And he didn't have to do that many demos because when you think of his catalog, he's got great songs with Christopherson that he wrote for Jerry Lee Lewis. He's got Hey Loretta. He's got One's on the Way. He's got just, all across the whole genre there. And he deeply loved country music and pure country artists. And he's like me. You really get excited to hear the voices that you're hearing in your head when you write the song actually sing it. Every time I'd go see him, he'd be playing me something that somebody had covered somewhere, and we'd just sit there and listen to the records. And I miss him all the time and wish he was just somebody to call and say, what do you think about this and that, and what happened? Where did that whole side of country music go to? I had a call that day. He and I spoke the evening before. He says, I'm feeling like I got maybe a stomach thing or something. And he was still trying to change a couple lines on a song he and I had written that Bobby Bear recorded, which is on a Bear family box set of Bear sings Shel called Whiplash Will from Watsonville. And he goes, well, in the third verse, maybe we should do this and that. He was constantly, just little tweaks here and there, being around him, I've really learned to spot that in my own writing, go, and this is where you let the ball drop. This is where the listener is lost. I like having wanted to be an artist, having to want to do more visual things. The songs I tend to write are very visual and have a lot of furniture, but it's not unnecessary furniture. I don't need to put a pickup truck in there. We already know it's parked outside. Shel loved great songwriting. Shel listened to Johnny Mercer, Cole Porter. He went back to the masters, to those kind of people, and inner rhymes. It's sort of like writing with John Prine. These people loved wordplay. They loved the English language, and they weren't scared to twist it and turn it. Read The Giving Tree. Read Where the Sidewalk Ends. I mean, those are wonderful poems for children of all ages. And they hold up today just as good. Shel's ABZ book is just as dark and strange and crazy as it was in 1956 or so when it came out as it would be today looking at it. Shel told me that he was in the Village and sharing an apartment with Herb Gardner, who wrote Thousand Clowns, and they kind of challenged each other to do something they'd never done before. And Herb wrote Thousand Clowns, and Shel wound up writing the Unicorn Song. And Shel had gotten his first guitar from Ramblin' Jack. All those guys were, it was a smaller scene. I'm good friends with Tom Paxton, and he took me around a number of times and kind of showed me where things were there and explained how the whole sort of situation was, because Tom was more of a writer like me, writing songs for Chad Mitchell, which if you say The Marvelous Toy, they go, oh yeah, that's that great Chad Mitchell song. No, that's the Tom Paxton, Bottle of Wine. I mean, those kind of catalogs, to me, are the ones that last. And that's all I've tried to do for the past 50 years is write songs that will hopefully put a smile on people's face or make them, think about something in a different light for a little bit.
Was Shel buddies with like Allen Ginsberg or Lawrence Ferlinghetti or?
Yeah, Larry was Shel's houseboat there in Gate 5. The guy who ran City Lights stayed there when Shel was. He also had a house in Key West, a place on the Vineyard, little places he could work out of. So he was definitely really tight with the whole City Lights kind of beat group of writers there, even though his reading taste leaned more towards Edward Lear, British sci-fi writers like, say, a Gerald Kirsch. I remember Shel turning me on to, he turned me on to Raymond Carver real early on. He turned me on to just so many. That was one of our things. You got to read this guy. And, to me, a great short story is everything that a good song should be. He was just a guy who could walk out the door, get on a plane, and boom, be there. I mean, he was not restrained in any way, shape, or form. The freedom the man had was amazing. Plus the fact that he lived in the Playboy Mansion for 10 years in Chicago. And after that, Playboy paid him X number of dollars per page to do Shel Silverstein Travels the Globe. Shel Silverstein goes to a nudist colony. Shel Silverstein does this and that. Came back from all those things, and Hefner had moved to California, and Shel was right there, around that scene. I know that Hefner had really great respect for Shel's ability as a cartoonist and just his mind, which was so fast, and he would find the humor and, never really saw a negative side to him. There's some people who just, it tends to shine through. He was always excited about, I'm going to work at this guy, I'm going to meet this girl here, I'm going to do this. He was ready for the next adventure. Wish his family was doing more of his back catalog. He's probably got enough recordings of his own demos to put out 3 or 4 albums a year for the next 50 years. I mean, he was such a prolific writer. And these were good songs. I guess when you have the royalties from The Giving Tree and Sidewalk Ends, you don't really worry about the things people never got to hear. It's not like he was a one-hit wonder.
Did you get to go to his funeral?
Yeah, the funeral was held at John Hartford's house. He had a memorial. In fact, that was the last time I saw Chet Atkins. Chet came out and all of Shel's buddies, and Shel was equally tight with the bluegrass community as he was with the country community, as he was with, different groups of people scattered all around Nashville. And there was people got up and spoke. It was a very nice service, and people like Deborah and the Dr. Hook guys were around. Just, it was a cross-section, because it might be the janitor from the Holiday Inn where he'd stay for a month at a time. Remember, he never drove a car, or he drove a car, but he got into a wreck in Africa early when he was younger and never drove after that. So part of our friendship was I had old pickup trucks that I drive him around to here and there. Sometimes I'd drop him off. Sometimes I'd go in and hang out. It would vary, but he relied on his friends. And right, he wanted to rent a booth at Elston Place Soda Shop in Nashville and have a phone put in. So that he could do his business out of there, which I thought was a great idea. Then I had moved out to California after a couple of years of writing here and was in Santa Cruz, and he wanted to enroll in the college and study Russian. And we're up there, and there's all these 17, 18-year-old California students, and Shel, I'm going, Shel, This ain't gonna work. Come on, We'd go out at night walking along the beach in Capitola and some of those towns there, and his memory, he would recite the perfect high from start to finish as he tweaked it. I mean, who's got that kind of a memory? And Rosalie's Goodies Cafe, I mean, these are epic songs. I can barely remember 2 verses and a chorus, and this guy's an amazing mind for that. Those kind of people, but the good thing is he was welcomed here. And like I said, Nashville had, people like Chris Christopherson, people like Bear, and who were Waylon, they were best buddies. You don't realize how broad his circle was, even though he was generally a solitary guy. He didn't have a posse. And I can't really think of other writers quite living that lifestyle, able to do that. Just go from one scene to another and blend in without having to at least change their shirt. I mean, if he was bored in Nashville, he'd say, take me to the airport. Where are you going now? Well, maybe I'll go to the houseboat. Maybe I'll go to New York City. He didn't leave the country that much after a while, but if he was bored, he was gone. Did not have time for that. And it's hard to believe that he was only 69 years old when he died.